quick announcement at the end of the video. Make sure to watch till the end. Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of the profile picture one that we've been working on, the logo design. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be working on the gemstones, the actual rest of the pickaxe itself, and then we'll save the gear for the one more episode after this, and then it should be done, so we don't need to worry about anything after that. So what I wanted to do today was work on the shading and basically the shading and the highlights for the the rubies, the stick, and then of course the actual I don't know what really to call it. I guess it's like a grip type thing. String, I would imagine, so something to grip onto the pickaxe so you don't have like a sore hand or whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the rubies, as there's a lot of that to begin with, and then we'll get that all done. Now they're all kind of shaped a little bit different, like their angles are a little bit different. Like this one's going to have a different one compared to this one and even that one, so there's going to be a lot of different angles that we have to look at and see what we can kind of blend in with the textures and stuff. Now I should have a highlight thing here that we were working with, so we can use these as our map to kind of make out the thing. I'm going to use the really bright shade to do most of the highlighting, and then we can always use the other ones if we need it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and just select all of the rubies for the red part. I'm going to deselect the parts that aren't part of that, and then we can start working on getting the actual parts set up. So now again, assuming that your light level is coming from this direction, like we've been basically using, what we want to do is we want to make sure that when the light's actually bouncing off of this, we want to provide light levels. So you have to kind of think of the shape too of when you're designing something like this. It's probably going to be most brightest on these sides here, and you're going to have a little bit of a reflection of the edge on the part right here where the light's getting the most saturation for the direction. So you'll probably have like a highlight around here. These parts will probably be a little bit lighter in general, and then these ones will probably be, well, at least this one in general will be a little bit darker. So because it's on the opposite side of the thing, so that will give it a 3D effect of it popping out. And we're going to actually start with getting the highlights for those sides set up. So I'm going to make sure that I'm selected. I'm going to make sure the tools are set up for the toolbar, and then I can start working on getting the highlights for these basically set, so we know what ones that we're going to be working with. Now this one's a little bit different. It's kind of like on a little bit of an angle, so we would probably just do this one and do a highlight here in this corner and a highlight in this corner a little bit. And this one, probably these two angles. This one, I would say probably those, and those two. So those are basically the lighter ones. And then what we want is the medium one. We'll go back to the pickaxe, and then what we're going to be looking for is the opposite side of those shapes. So these ones will be a little bit darker, and we're going to do a single one there, single one here. We can probably just actually select the ones. We have the settings all set up now, so it should be fine. So that one, this one's kind of like on an angle there, but yeah, maybe that one's just going to be a solid or the original color. So let's go ahead and select that. We'll change that back, and we'll select that one. And this one should just be dark right there. So you might even notice right now that it's already a little bit 3D. It's not like a huge amount. We haven't added the highlights or anything, but it definitely did change a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get the darkest part, and I'm actually going to decrease this value a little bit more. So we have like a really dark part, and I'm just going to make sure that this color is darker than what we have here, because we're going to use this for our outline. So I want to set the shape. So yeah, that will be good for the outline. And we're going to go ahead and just select the parts here so it's not as dark as the what do you call it, the actual Ruby itself. When we're using the shading and stuff, we want to make sure that we have a shade for the shading, but we also want to make sure that we have an outline shade as well. So in this case, we're going to use that extra one, and we're going to start with the highlights. So I'm going to actually work on this one right here on the pickaxe, and then I can kind of demonstrate how this is all going to work. So we're going to need to drop down our part here. We're going to select those two, and we're going to make the line, I'm not sure how big the line is, that's not big enough. So we'll set maybe 13, maybe a little larger than that. We'll probably go about 20. Yeah, that'll be good. All right, so when you're working with shading and stuff, what you want to do is think of where the light's going to be hitting, so like the most, and then you want to kind of outline that as your reflection. Now, light colors are kind of like reflection, and then the darker is like shading, right? So what we want to think about is where is the light going to be most concentrated on when it's actually hitting this particular thing. Now, with the angle that it's going outwards, we're probably not going to have much reflection down at the bottom here, but we might have it around here where the edge meets. So it won't be as reflective at the base because it's kind of bouncing straight off, but it might start refracting at the part where the what do you call it, the lines actually meet. So I'm going to actually also do this where it's actually going to just kind of blend in a little bit with the part there, and that should give it some depth for the Ruby itself. And then we can do the shading on this side. We'll have a solid piece, and then we'll kind of blend it in that way. Now that works. Another thing that we want to consider is it's coming directly down. Now there's two lighter parts here, so we might actually have a little bit of shading when it meets up with this angle here, right? Because it's going to kind of refract on the edge when it hits this part, and that will kind of give that impression that it's directly on this angle. So we have a few textures like that that use that same method, but we're going to start with a shading next, just so you guys can kind of see what it'll be looking like when we actually get the shading part up and running. And then I'll do the rest in kind of like a time lapse, I guess, because it will take some time, and then I'll cut back in with the other part here. So let's see here. So this is the darker part. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the darker part here, and we're going to kind of pivot that all the way over here. Now you have to think like, okay, when it's coming down from the thing, it's probably going to be a little bit lighter at the top here, not so much at the base, but at the top, yes. So it's basically the exact opposite as the other one that we have. So we're going to kind of bring this over. Let's see here. See if we can't do that. And we'll bring it like that, just so it's a little bit different for the sides there. And for this top part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little medium shade for this. And because it's going to have a lot of reflection still on the surface, so we don't want to use that exact reflection, but we do want a little bit of shading, so we're going to use a lighter shade for this. And we're going to start with this part here, and then we'll kind of blend it in with the parts that connect, so something like that. So you can kind of see that it's blending in really nicely with the surrounding. I might even drop that shade for the border a little bit more too, just so it's not as bright. So we can drop it a little bit, and I just want to see what it would look like with a little bit less contrast. So we'll maybe go up to there, and and we'll bring it more towards the red hue. So yeah, that looks like it would work for the shading and stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that. We could even kind of outline the part down here where the, oh, I just realized that there's a bit of red there. So we'll select all that, and then we'll go ahead and use the fill tool here. Just fill that in. So what I was saying was that you can kind of use a darker shade for this part and then kind of blend it in with a lighter shade. That will probably work better because then it will give a proper highlight. So what we can do is we can use that lighter shade here, and we'll just draw a line where we want it to connect to. Probably be better off if we use a single line though. So something like that, and then we're going to draw a line here, and we'll draw a line here, and then we'll draw a line over here as well. And then we can fill that in. I also noticed there's a dot there. We'll fix that in a second. So that will be like the lighter part. And then what we'll do is we'll take this darker part, we'll drop this down a little bit more. Maybe like 28 or whatever. And then that will be like the darker part where it kind of blends in. So it has more contrast at this part because we want to make sure that it blends a little nicer. Now with this part here, what we could do is we could actually fill this in with the medium color. And that would probably be better, more appropriate to what we're actually working with. And we might want to bring that down a little bit too for the lighting. It's probably not exactly that same value, so we can bring it down to about here where the colors meet, and we'll fill this in. So something like that looks really good. And then we'll do the rest for the other ones, and that will take some time, so I'll probably just cut that off the camera because it's already like 12 minutes in. So I'll do the same for the other ones. I'll fix up the pixel here and a few other things, and then I'll come back in. Alright, so I got the gemstones done. So we got the highlights and everything finished with that. There is a few different notes that I want to add. So first thing is I'm using the, on the parts that are like medium, for the medium color, I'm using the bright highlight over here for the base color. This gives it a little bit more appropriate depth for that part. If we were to use the extreme highlight color, then it wouldn't look as accurate as it does now. So basically that's the only change that I've done. It's basically the same idea as when we use this color to kind of blend in the shadow on this part here. It's a little bit lighter on this side, so it's proper. And I've also brought in the dark shade right along the parts that connect, so you can kind of see that's what's giving it that outline there. Alright, so with the other part here, what we have is the stick, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to use probably just 3 colors for this one. We'll probably add some texture too. Not a lot of texture, but we'll kind of mix in some lines, like detail lines. We'll probably bring this up to like 3, and we'll select the part here, and we'll go ahead and just kind of maybe a little bit larger, so maybe about that size. So we can start adding a little bit of texture here to kind of bring out the stick feel to it, and then we can kind of blend in the colors with that. So we'll do something like this, and maybe something like that, and then we can do a darker shade on this side to kind of blend in that other part. So we'll go ahead and select everything again, and then we'll kind of blend in some additional textures here. So we'll do something like that, and another one around here. Bring that one all the way down, and another one up here. And this should give it a little bit of depth as well. So when we get the shading in, it'll look really good. So that's basically what it will look like for the stick part. You know, you don't always have to go like all out on detail and stuff like that. Just a little bit of texture can really help. Now, I wouldn't mind improving this area a little bit more, but I'm not going to go like all out for trying to get it like perfect. So when we add the shading, it will be a little bit different. So let's go ahead and grab the lightest color here, and then we'll go ahead and we will select our parts here. Now, when you're looking at the lighting here, it's going to probably be bouncing off of this side on the left, and then the dark side will be on the right for this. So we're going to actually increase our line tool to probably about 30, maybe a little bit higher than that, maybe about 50. I'm going to go 80 and just use it as kind of like a outline. So I want to bring it down all the way down to this part here, and we're going to go right past the other part here underneath. And when we're doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to actually go ahead and for the lightest parts, we're going to ensure that the light part is there. And then what we can do is, or actually, you know what we can do is we're going to do that line like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select the dark part. And then for the dark part here, we're going to go ahead and just remove those parts. And we're going to use that medium tool again, that medium shade. So we'll select that one, and we'll go ahead and paint that onto these parts here where it's lighter. And we could even do that one where that line goes there, and we might even want to build another line right there. Probably go about 5. I think I used a 5. No, I used a 10. Yeah, so we'll go like that. All right, and then for the dark part over on this side, what we can do is very similar to the same thing. We'll kind of branch out go with like a 60 tool, and then we'll do the dark side on the other side here. And then we'll kind of fill in the parts that are between that scale. So we'll select that, and we'll set this to 80. And then we'll select our medium textures. And then we can go like this. I'm going to bring it a little bit over onto some of these parts. And you might even notice that it's starting to do that nice shade blending and stuff like that. So I'm actually going to select the darkest part here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually, you know what, let's try that again. We're going to use a different layer for this so we can make our life a little bit easier with blending these textures in a little bit more. So I'm going to draw this on a different layer here. And then this should be on its own layer. So when we go ahead and select our pickaxe. I'm not sure why this isn't actually overlaying the color there. Okay, we should be fine to select it though, right? No, we're not. Okay, so I'm going to blend that down with this layer here. Oh, no. Not quite sure what's going on with this. So we'll disable, create a layer from this one. And we'll see if this lets us, yeah, that lets us do that. So we'll select our part here, and then we can go ahead and draw that line again. Oh, I see what's going on. All right, I need to disable or select those shades there so we can go to our new layer, and then we'll paint that on like this. And then what we can do is we can bring that part up, and we'll go ahead and select that part, and then we will go ahead and deselect that. So we just get that part where it's basically overlapping. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and grab our medium shade for the darker one. And we can go ahead and fill that over onto these parts here. So it kind of blends in a little bit nicer when it goes over these parts. So that's basically what the idea is. Might even do a little bit more detail. We'll drop this down to 10 like we were using before. And just fill in some of these parts here. Just give it a little bit extra depth. That part's fine. I will fill in a little bit on this bottom part though. We can merge these two layers down now. And we'll do a couple of those and just trying to get the grain a little bit even too. We'll bring this up a little bit more. And one line right through here. That should be good for the wood texture. We might even blend in a little bit more on this side. So we'll do maybe just a line right down here, just to kind of bring it in a little bit more. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want some texture there. So, and then for this one, what I want to do is just kind of bring that up to there, just so it's a little bit more even. All right, so that's the texture that I want for that part. We could have gone just with a regular plain texture, but that's not really that interesting. So I want to also imply that this is wood too, right? So that's basically the reason behind that part. And I'm just going to bring this up a little bit more to that point, just to kind of give it a little bit more depth. So you can kind of see that it's feels a lot more like a rounded stick now. And that leaves this part here. So this part, what we're going to do is when we're looking at the angle above, let's re-enable the angle direction. We can see that the light's coming down from this angle. So we're going to be wanting to put light along these corners here. So basically it'll kind of blend in around. So we're going to start with a shading. So we follow the shade of the stick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and then blend in those textures for the parts that blend. So first things first, we're going to need the medium texture. Or I think we went with a very light texture for the parts on the side. So we'll follow that same method there. So we'll select all those, and then we can go with like a, we'll go with 40. That's not a big space to work with, so we want to bring these like that. And then we're going to kind of bring it around. So we'll follow this line here. And we'll blend it into the edge like that. So we'll do that for the other ones. And then when we add our second layer, what we'll end up doing is we'll go ahead and kind of fill in, like using that layer trick that we did to do the lines. Only this time what we'll do is we'll do it to overlay the texture, or not texture, the shading on each degree. So we'll bring that up a little bit more, this down, and that up. So like that. And then we'll do the same for this one. So like that. All right, so that's the general outline that we want. And then what we want to do is we want to divide that up into sections. So we'll start with the lighter color, and we will go ahead and pick a location. We'll follow the line there, and we'll set this to maybe 5 for the brush size, and then we'll bring it up to here. Yeah, we'll actually drop this line down to a 1 pixel line so we can easily just draw the other part. Now we want to make sure when we're doing this that we select our edges, and I didn't really get that perfect line. So we'll bring it up a little bit more like that. And then we'll fill this part in, that part in, and then we'll continue up the line until we get to the part there, and then I'll show you what I'll be doing next. So let me just cut back. All right, so that part's done. And now we want to do the darker shade for this. So we're going to select this part here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring the, well, actually we're going to select the medium texture because we're going to be working with that part. Or yeah, we'll probably do that. So we want to go with the line that goes from here. Now we're going to align this texture or the shade right up with this dark part on the stick itself. And we're going to bring this down the line here, and we'll bring this one up. So we're aiming to get the same angle for both of these. So it might be a little bit off, but that's fine. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and make this part darker. And then what we can do is for this part, we'll use this shade here. And then we have to fix up the shade on that part, all those lines there. But basically the idea is that it's going to be darker on these parts because the shading. And it's going to be lighter on the top here where the light's actually refracting because of the light level. So I'll just kind of fill this in. Doesn't have to be perfect or follow the line. We're just basically mending this in so it's one texture. So I'm just going to double check to make sure that all the corners and stuff are okay with that. We still need to do these sides here, so I'm going to just quickly bring that up to there, and then we'll do the same on this one. And then we'll fill this in. Oh, you know what? We should probably fill in the dark texture first. So we'll offline that. We'll fill that part in, and then we'll fill in the medium texture. Just because if we filled it the other way, we would basically fill out the area completely. So that's basically that part. What we want to do now is we want to go ahead and set up the outlines for the bottom part and the mesh itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a darker shade for this, just a little bit darker, and we're going to bring it towards the red hue. And we're going to go ahead and just draw a line along here. And we're going to go ahead and probably drop that part off right around here. And we're going to draw a line all the way up for these parts. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be dark enough. It probably will be, but if not, we can always adjust it. So we'll bring it all the way up to here. And then we'll kind of branch that off like that. And then we can fill this part in after we adjust this part right here. So we need to make sure that line doesn't connect up with anything. And then we can just fill that part in. And then what we can do is with this other part, we can use that lighter color. And we'll draw the other lines on the other side here, just so we can get that fabric texture in properly. So I'll do that. And we want to bring it over here. That might be a little bit too close to the color. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that just yet, but yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Okay, I forgot a line over on this side. Okay, so that looks pretty good for the fabric part. And now we just need the part for the edge here. So what I'm going to use is probably the medium dark part on that side, like we've been using for the other textures. And we'll just kind of fence off these parts that connect along here. We're good for that side, so all we need to do is really do this dark side right here. And then we'll fill this in like that, and that looks really good like that. And then we can drop that dark side down even further, going towards the red texture. And then we'll go ahead and just make sure that this line is fenced off. And I think that's all we need to do. Oh, I didn't fence it off all the way. There's a little gap right here. You have to be careful of those ones. So we'll do that. I don't think it's actually dark enough. So we'll do that one and then that one, and that's good. So that's all I'm going to do today. Next episode, what we're going to work on is we're going to work on the cog itself behind the texture itself. For the pickaxe and stuff. That's going to take probably all next episode to work on. When we get that done, we will be creating another color for the brass color for that particular one. So we'll need to create a new palette and something a little bit different for the parts that aren't actually like these shades here. So we need to make more of a yellowy color for that. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the overall look of it today. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, rate the video, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. I have this friend that has their own server hosting company, and they have the lowest prices in the server hosting community, and they've given me a promo code to give to you guys. So if you want to get a good deal for the first month, then you can use the promo code Northwest for 45% off your first month. Offer expires July 19th, 2034. The link to their site is in the description.